Hello, everyone, and today I did something special. I may have bought the DLC since we're not going to be dating Cove. I figured we might as well date somebody, and why not the other hottest boy, Derek? So I figured the DLC starts in step two, which is where we're at. So I figured we start that today, and I'll switch between the DLC for Derek and the main story ones, so we can get through this a little quicker. All right, let's hop into this, everybody. Okay, so we go over here. Thank you for purchasing Derek's DLC. He can play 5 moments centered around Derek. He also has a special epilogue. In step 4, to unlock it, you need to fulfill these conditions. Play all 5 of the Derek DLC moments. Completing Soiree with Cove or by going alone is alright, so long as you finish the moment. Choose to remain in touch with Derek during step 3, then you will have the option to play Derek's epilogue during step 4. You can only have one epilogue per playthrough. You can make a save on the epilogue selection page to reload there and pick another later. Derek's DLC can be a friendship or a romance story. We'll go with romance for this one. And then in my playthrough on my own, I'm gonna do him a friendly. So let's hop in. Responsible. The pool of Derek's condo complex was a perfect setting for a late morning outing. It was early enough that the day hadn't yet reached its hottest. The air still held its crispness of the morning. Despite its pleasantness, only you and Derek were there. Of course, given the location of the ocean, you may be everyone else who felt like the waterside fun was at the beach. You usually were. The warm roughness of the tiles felt odd on your bare feet as you walked further into the pool area. There was no sand to squish between your toes or sharp shells to avoid. You surveyed the area while Derek finished putting his stuff away on a chair. The chlorine was sharp in your senses, and the entire space was so orderly. The lounge chair sat in neat rows, umbrellas spaced out uniformly. The depth of the pool was marked out in clear text along the sides. Every single element was intentional and expertly crafted to be convenient for its human visitors. It was extremely different from the wild mistress of the sea. You liked the poolside more. You liked the sandy beach with rolling waves more. You liked both the pool and the beach about the same. You weren't a fan of either the pool or the beach. I love the beach way more than I love the pool. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoy a pool, but I like to do bodyboarding and things, and you just can't do it in a pool. This pool was too tame, like it was some kind of big bathtub, and the chemical smell was off-putting. The beaches had so much more than just water. Where were the hidden treasures, the wide open space and vast horizon? Pools made sense when the ocean was a trillion miles away, but you didn't really have a use for it when the beach basically began in your backyard. This had been Derek's plan. He let you know about it ahead of time so you could be dressed for the occasion. You wore a one piece, you wore a two piece, you wore swim trunks, you wore a wetsuit. I like trunks and a t-shirt, shorts, a t-shirt and shorts, shell cover up. You were comfortable in that. We're gonna run around without a shirt. Like, it's fine. Your swimming gear was familiar even if the pool wasn't. You felt prepared. Derek bound up to you in his own swim trunks, flagrant flagrantly ignoring the no running side in his enthusiasm.
Okay.
Watch, I'm gonna do a cannonball. As soon as he knew he had your attention, he took off into the deep end of the pool. He built up speed, then leapt into the water, his curled up body creating a huge splash on impact. You laughed, you applauded, you smiled, you gasped, you dashed away from the fire, and you cheered. We applaud. You had to appreciate his talent in showmanship. He had practice on how to achieve maximum splash. Such a show deserved a clap. He stayed under for a while longer. He touched the pool's bottom before he kicked himself back upwards. When Derek's head popped out of the water, he swam to the edge of the pool and propped himself up with a grin. He watched you expectantly. You jumped in the pool. You walked over to the step to get in. You sat on the edge and dipped your feet in. You plopped yourself in the nearest land share. We're a jump. You don't walk in the pool. You go. Like Derek, you gave yourself a bit of a running start. You reached the end, took a deep breath, and leapt as far as you could. Frigid water burst around your feet first, but soon covering you entirely. You sunk lower into the depths and began to kick. You breached the surface and sucked in the fresh air. You noticed two things. One, that the water wasn't actually freezing when you got used to it. And two, Derek was clapping for you.
Nice.
Nice, you got some serious airtime. I give it a 10 out of 10. As you enjoyed the moment, your thoughts fell back to how you'd gotten here last night. Derek had called with a different sort of request. You remembered that his voice had been a mix of nerves and hope. He had a favor to ask. You very, very unexpected for him. Derek's mom needed him to watch his little brothers in the afternoon. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary, but that was part of his problem. Lately, he had feared that his sports skills weren't as sharp as he wanted them to be. He hadn't been able to practice soccer or football without the distraction of keeping an eye on his brothers. His idea to fix this had been to ask for your help watching the kids. If you agreed to go to the park with him and his brothers, then you could manage his brothers while he had a chance to focus on practice. That's how he explained it. You said yes, and your moms had been more than happy to let you spend the day playing support for Derek. They said it would be a good opportunity to take on some more responsibility. To sweeten the deal, Derek suggested that you come by early so that you could both hit the pool. Nicholas would be sleeping in, and George could spend some one-on-one time with Miss Suarez. So far, the plan had worked out. Ma dropped you off about 15 minutes ago, and both Derek's brothers were fully occupied. Miss Suarez and George were back in the condo putting together an 800-piece puzzle in the kitchen counter while Nicholas snoozed on the couch. You had time to kick a ball before the moment came to be in charge of small children. A sloshing sound pulled you back to the present. Derek had climbed out of the pool. I'm going to jump in again. Want to join? Yeah, let's go. No, I'm going to sunbathe. I'd rather just wash. Nope. I want to swim some lap. Nah. Me and my brother, cannonball contest. Every time. Every time. And then it was the pencil diving, who could go deeper. And then it was who could make the loudest belly flop. That one was the worst, I must say. But me and my brother, healthy competition. You copied Derek's exit from the pool and took arm strength and caution not to scrape yourself on the texture of the concrete. Once on solid ground, you reversed away from the edge, giving yourself enough space for a good jump. Twice ago, you and Derek made eye contact. He leaned forward, balancing on the balls of his feet. I've already done one. It's your turn. Belly flop, black flip. You offered your hand to Derek so you could jump in at the same. Assembly jump. You showed him your cannonball. You walked off the edge of the water. You cartwheeled into the pool. Let's show off some skills. You planted your feet solidly at the edge of the pool, not facing the water. You bent your legs and prepared. You swung your arms back until, like a pendulum, you swung them forward. The moment your hands passed your knees, you jumped backwards. You tucked your body in as tight as you could, as tight as you turned all the way around before you hit the water. Whoa, that was awesome. You stretched out and reached up towards the surface, parting your arms to paddle over to dry ground. Derek was laughing boisterously. It was his turn next, but the curve in his grin and the tilt of his chin, he looked to be in a mood to impress. His eyebrows drew together in deep furrow as he considered his launch. Derek took a few bounding steps to the edge and jumped in and tucked his body in. Unlike his previous cannonball, the energy went into a spin and he flipped, making a furious rotation before he crashed to the surface. The water droplets from the splash dazed you as they exploded out from his impact. He swam under the water, only he came back to the surface after he reached the wall of the pool. He snaked his hands up to the top of the tiles and pushed himself up so that his hips were even with the edge. He twisted and practically rolled out of the pool from there. You're up. Okay. Let's see here. We're going to show him our cannonball. You backed up a little more to give yourself more space before going for it. You kicked up your feet and running to the edge and leapt. Curled into a ball, falling quickly, the air rushed past you, and then you were sinking towards the bottom of the pool. Whoa. You kept switching back and forth, trading off between silly jumps and then more impressive tricks. From watching Derek's well-practiced dives to performing your own jumps, it was never a boring second. After several leaps, Derek called a break time, and you took a breath at the back stairs of the pool. You waited for your strained heart rate to even out from all the exertion. After a pause of silence, Derek spoke up. He pulled his fist to his cheek and thought, squishing his face lightly. Hey, I probably should have asked before, but have you ever babysat someone before? No, is that so bad? No, but how hard could watching a couple of kids be? Yeah, sometimes I babysit for some of my mom's friends. Is baby sitting a dog count? You nodded yes. You shook your head. No, but we gotta get some experience. Derek snorted and shook his head. Well, with both of us, it probably won't be too bad keeping everything together. But I'll tell you, when it's 2-on-1 game, it's rough. You were eager to take on the job. You felt nervous about being in charge. You were curious to see how the experience would go. You were prepared for it to be a pain, but would do it for Derek. You didn't know how you felt yet. I'm eager. I love kids. You wanted to give Derek some assistance, and watching his brother sounded fun. After that interlude, you both continued enjoying yourselves and freedom until a little bleeping alarm went off. That's time. He made his way to the lounge chairs with his stuff and dug out a small portable clock. It buzzed until he found the stop button. Derek checked the time and narrowed his eyes at the glowing red numbers. He shot you a thumbs up. Let's go up. You helped him gather the towels and grabbed the rest of the stuff, and then tried to drip as little as possible while rushing through the halls of the complex. When you reached his apartment, he dumped everything in his arms on the ground as he scrambled to find his key. Just give me a second. I don't want to knock or anything in case Nicholas is still asleep. He finally spied his soccer ball keychain and snatched it up from his keys from where they were tangled in his towel. He inserted the key into the lock and both of you shuffled inside the Suarez home. 3 heads swiveled to face the two of you, gazes being drawn to a bundle of neon towels coming in. Miss Suarez and George were sitting on the bar stools, while Nicholas perched on the counter itself with an exciting grin. They were working on a puzzle. You, on your left, Derek leaned closer and spoke under his breath. He's awake. Derek's back. Quick as a blink, Nicholas scrambled on his hands and feet and zipped across the black marble of the counter. Tiny cardboard puzzle pieces scattered. Nicholas, the puzzle! Despite George's frustration, the little whirlwind didn't seem to hear. He was on a mission to reach his big brother, not even stopping when he hit the end of the counter. Nicholas stumbled off the edge, and Derek instinctively moved forward with him, gasping, dropping his pool stuff except for the towel wrapped around him. Miss Suarez caught Nicholas with her forearm, hooking under his chest, snatching him from midair. Ooh! She hugged her son, holding him securely against her body. A curse relief sighs filled the room. Nicholas was still paid no mind to his trail of disaster and began to squirm. He just wanted to be down already. Derek took another few steps forward, making his way over to the scene. Miss Suarez carefully held Nicholas out, her hands under his armpits, and safely set him on his feet. Nicholas immediately wrapped his arm around Derek's leg. Derek chuckled while tugging up his towel so Nicholas wouldn't pull it off. Hold on, Nico, you're gonna get wet. Nicholas giggled mischievously and snuggled closer. Derek snuck a quick peek over his shoulder back at you and shrugged. Just as warned, Nicholas now had a damp splotch on his shirt. Hi, everybody. I told Nicholas he worried you. You asked George if his puzzle was alright. Nicholas, I'm here too, you know. You waited beside Derek. Let's ask him if his puzzle's alright. Like, dude seemed concerned. The counter was littered with pieces. You could see that there were a large section of the puzzle put together, several scattered parts that had been broken back into many individual pieces. Some had even been knocked to the floor, and you picked up a few to hand to George. How's the puzzle? George stared at the pieces pinched between your fingers distantly before accepting them. He sighed over the mess. Yeah, it's alright. George nodded at you, appreciating that you had asked. He still seemed unhappy, but no major harm done. Well. Miss Suarez's tone was warm, with a certain amount of humor to it. She rubbed her hands together and stood up. Derek and Ari are in charge now. Make sure you listen to them. George sourly picked at the puzzle pieces, but gave a grumbled noise to signify he had heard. I'm going to head off to my appointment. She went to gather some things, officially putting you and Derek in charge, but there wasn't 1 second to settle into your new position. We're going swimming? Nicholas looked up and stared with huge shining eyes. Derek reflexively stiffened. How would he escape the puppy dog look? Derek's eyebrows creased, a small sign of nervousness compared to the smooth blasting sound of his voice. No, even better. He leaned down and lowered his voice like he was about to share a secret. We're gonna go to the park. Nicholas instantly frowned. He wasn't convinced by Derek's act. He grabbed at Derek's towel. You were swimming? Yeah, but I'm not anymore. I'm going to the park, and you can come with me. No! The little Suarez whined and stomped his foot. His hands balled up around the neon fabric harshly enough that he almost took the towel from Derek. I want to go to the pool. I want to see Aries' swimsuit. What? Derek's jaw dropped. Neither of you were prepared for that one. Did you hear Nicholas right? You looked down at yourself, currently wrapped in a bright fuzzy towel. You switched your gaze to Derek's youngest brother, your brain trying to make sense of what was happening. Why would you want that? Why does Nicholas want anything? George rolled his eyes and continued mumbling into the counter. It was obvious to him he couldn't believe the rest of you were taking so long to catch up. I have to say, look at these brothers. I mean, they, ooh, they all have their own little personality going on, but also like, you can, what's it called? You can see the similar traits between them because like genetic is one of those few things that is determined by like only one or two genes. Um, and I think it's really cool. I love genetics. So I just look at these boys. So cute. And it looks like green seems to be the dominant eye color, as well as isn't green a recessive trait though? If two of them have green and green is a recessive trait, that means the recessive trait is stronger than the dominant trait. So that means it would be big R, little r, and two little r's for the second one. So George rolled his eyes and continued mumbling into the counter. It was obvious to him and he couldn't believe us you were taking so long to catch up. It's because Derek does. You felt stunned. You couldn't help feeling amused. You suddenly felt extremely bashful. You only felt more confused. You didn't know how you felt about that. We feel amused. That's kind of funny. Derek narrowed his eyes and whispered harshly,
Seriously?
Nicholas, George, you're gonna put me into an early grave. He took a deep breath as he stared at the ceiling. It took him a moment to face you. His voice was firm for someone at his level of embarrassment. I must have said something about hoping you'd remember to bring your swimsuit. I was excited for us to be able to swim. I did want you to have one. Nicholas does not actually want to see you in a swimsuit. He doesn't even know why he'd want that. He's just saying stuff. He snorted and had to cover your mouth to stop yourself from laughing. Derek shook his head, still blushing but he relaxed at your obvious amusement. Little kids were so funny. You snuck another look at Nicholas. He had crossed his arms high on his chest and squished his neck down far enough to rest his chin on his wrist. I want to go swimming. His pout intensified when he said it again. He was a very angry little baby. Derek tilted back on his heels, once again driven to look at the ceiling by the strain of this kid. You glanced up there yourself without thinking about it. It was a calm white color with a few light fixtures. When you squinted, you noticed something small and green and appeared to be one of the sticky hands for kids. Was it another present from the youngest Suarez? You turned back to Derek. He appeared to have made a decision. Alright, I promise that you can go swimming too, but only after the park. We'll go to the pool as soon as we come back. With the promise officially made, Nicholas lit up. He snatched one of Derek's hands. Oh my god. I've been drinking water. I did so much Christmas shopping yesterday, and then I went again today with my boyfriend's sister to get stuff for him. And so afterwards, I came back here. I started my recording stuff, and then my brother and his fiance came over, and I suggested we all go out to dinner because I don't like eating alone, and my parents are out of the house for the night. So I took my brother and his fiance for dinner. It was nice. I don't really get to eat dinner with them, and I miss eating dinner with them. Cheyenne lived with us from the time she turned 18 till she was 24. So let's go. We've got to get to the park so I can swim. While Nicholas celebrated, Derek closed his eyes and some of the worry creases on his face smoothed out. Derek, there's a lunch packed in the fridge that will be back before dinner.
I gotcha.
Gotcha. Thanks, Mom.
Have a good one.
Have a good one. Miss Suarez waved at and collected the last of her things, her purse off the side table. She ruffled George's hair on her way out. You and Derek were alone with the kids. We should really stop leaving puddles everywhere. He gestured at the drops of water pooling at his feet. You read my mind. You and Derek took turns changing. You went first, while you could faintly hear Derek impressing on his brothers to listen to you too. He must have convinced them to behave for now, as neither George nor Nicholas acted up when Derek took his turn drying off and clothing himself. Can you get our lunch from the fridge? I'm gonna pack my gear. No problem. You walked casually to the kitchen. George hadn't moved from his bar stool, even once since you'd gotten back. Meanwhile, Nicholas followed Derek like a possessed shadow that was even more energetic than the original. He zipped around, occasionally trying to place things in Derek's backpack for him. So far, Derek had said no to the rubber duck, but had agreed to bring an extra pair of socks that Nicholas had determined were absolutely necessary. Okay, got everything. Derek returned with a backpack in one hand and Nicholas' small hand in the other. We're going, George. Ready, Ari? I was born ready. Sure. He pushed away from the counter and finally hopped off his chair with the enthusiasm of a plank of wood. We're going! Derek hid his smile at Nicholas's echo and ushered everyone outside. He locked the condo behind him. He began a trip to a nearby park. The park for the Suarez boys was the big park for your family. Their condo complex was only a short distance to the public outdoor recreation area your mom sometimes drove you to. It was still a beautiful day outside and had only gotten a few degrees warmer from your morning swim. The field was bustling with other groups of people enjoying themselves. Derek led the way to a wide open part of the grass that no one else was using. He stopped in the middle of the field, turned 180 degrees to face the little boys behind him. He shrugged his backpack off his shoulder and dropped it to the ground. He knelt down to root around inside. George and Nicholas waited in place for their brother. Derek gathered up a couple of things in his arm before pushing off the ground with his knees to get up again. He held a football in his left hand and a soccer ball in his right hand. All right, Nicholas, George, I've got to practice. But you can too. Which do you want?
Okay.
Football. Real ball. You raised an eyebrow at their shouts. Derek leaned over to you and answered with a laugh. He means the soccer ball. It's real because it's actually ball shaped. Is that a problem? What they both want? Derek simply grinned. I thought so. He tossed George the football first, and George caught it from out of the air with one hand and began to bounce it up and down in his fingers, feeling the weight of it. Derek plopped the soccer ball gently over to Nicholas, who watched his brother intently. Nicholas had to catch it with both hands. He wrapped his arms around the ball and hugged it to his chest. And with his brothers taken care of, Derek crouched again to reveal a third ball. He brought a second soccer ball. Derek had been prepared. He then sprung back to his feet. Another problem diverted. George, Nicholas, you can use this half of the field. I'll use that half. Ari can be your ref so you don't get too far from them, alright? Okay. George tossed his football in the air, preoccupied. It spun in an arc downwards. Alright, I'm gonna practice. Nicholas embraced his soccer ball tighter, pressing his cheek into it. You wondered just how he'd practice with it when the equipment was about to as big as his head. The child looked completely content with the world, but Derek's eyes narrowed once again as he shared some of Nicholas's info in your ear. Oh, I love it. They're so cute. Go them. Go them. Ooh, I did not full screen that. There we go. At least it didn't cut off half of it this time. I got that going for me. Oh, that was a disaster last week. The child looked completely content into your ear. Watch him. It's not over. He copies what I say, but it's not what he means. You snuck a peek at Nicholas. He appeared so innocent, clutching his ball and staring at a patch of clove in the grass, but you interacted with him enough to not question his potential for trouble. You'd make sure to keep an eye on it. Don't worry, I got this. Thank you, Ari. You're a lifesaver. Derek held his soccer ball in both hands and cheered. Bye, bros. Bye. Bye. Derek put on a smile as he picked up his bag and tucked his soccer ball under his arm. He jogged to the side of the field. He didn't have time to lose. You stood with the younger Suarez boys effectively turned loose. George stared at you with uncertainty, while Nicholas, Mr. Smart, could only make you guess what he was thinking. You weren't going to make Mr. and Miss Suarez regret letting you come, and especially weren't going to disappoint Derek. You were going to watch those boys. Time to be in charge. I'm going to play over there. He pointed vaguely to the opposite side of the field from Derek and trotted off to entertain himself. You let him go without argument. George wasn't the problem child. When you saw him settle in, throwing around his football and chasing it, you smiled. You would only need to manage Nicholas. You aimed your grin towards him, but instead of being Clover Patch, he was missing. You snapped your head back and forth until you spotted him fumbling, dash across the grass, struggling to keep his soccer ball from slipping out of his arms. When Derek said, "Watch him," he really meant it. Your first babysitting gig was started off with a bang. Oh, stop. You ran over without a word. You ran over and picked him up. Hey, come back here, young man. We're just gonna run over. You were thankful for your long legs. Since the kid was quick, you closed the gap between the two and you stood in front of him. You didn't look up until he bumped into your legs. And he snickered. He tried to dash around you, so you had to shift to the left to block his progress. He then went right and speedily sidestepped. Soon you both were going back and forth as though you were actually playing a game of soccer. Nicholas was trying to get past you to score. The soccer ball tumbled from his arms. You then kicked the ball to him and suggested playing. Oh hey Nicholas, you're hanging out with me just like Derek does. And you were totally overwhelmed. Let's boost this kid's ego. Nicholas paused, finally interested. You raised one of his bushy eyebrows and you said the magic word, like Derek. He spent a lot of time coming to see me, remember? Now it's your turn to be the person I have fun with. Pretty cool. Nicholas' cheeky grin fell, but his eyes began to sparkle. He pumped one of his fists in the air. Yeah, I'm gonna hang out with Ari. But with him cheering, you sighed a relief. You made a mental note. If you needed Nicholas' attention, you just mentioned Derek. Let's go back to the Clove Patch, a nice place for a hangout. You led him closer to George. Even if the middle Suarez could manage himself, he shouldn't be entirely on his own. The only times you gaze strayed from the little Suarez was when you blinked or sent the occasional glance George's way. George continued to enjoy his time at the park without any need for assistance, so you spent most of your energy on the mischief maker. And after smoothing out the initial bump of the afternoon, things evened out. At least things were fine until the trial known as lunch arrived. It started with the reappearance of Derek. His presence sent Nicholas into hyperdrive. He bounced on the tips of his toes and waved both hands frantically. Derek's back! He tackled his brother and latched around Derek's left leg. George, like half of the entire park, noticed the shout. He jogged over to see if any important updates were happening. Without him, Derek winked. Hey, bros.
What's up?
Hey, Ari. I hope you're doing all right. As he spoke, he let his bag drop to the ground and crouched over it and scrounged up the packed lunches. It's all good. Oh, yeah, it's just great. I don't know how you do this all the time. You know, I'm having fun. You shrugged. I'm having fun. I love kids. That's awesome. You beamed back at him. Despite being a handful, you were enjoying Nicholas. He kept you on your toes. Are you having fun, Nicholas? Yeah. Me too. What about you, George?
Yeah.
Yeah. Derek set aside 3 paper bags in the grass, one in front of Nicholas, another next to George, and the third went to you. Derek kept the 4th lunch inside his backpack. He only pulled a water bottle out from it and closed the backpack up. Okay, Nicholas, you gotta eat now with Ari and George. Nicholas clenched Derek's jeans more desperately and whined. You're not gonna eat with me? Derek scratched the back of his head and gave a longing glance where he'd been practicing. Do you mind, Ari? I was hoping I'd have more time to practice. He bit his lip, hope clear on his face. He had confidence in you that you could handle lunch alone. You should really eat lunch too. I'll handle it, okay? Sure, good luck with your practice. You gave him an okay sign. You signed. The boy should eat lunch too. I'll be fine, I promise. Nicholas whimpered. Never stopped being high-pitched. Background noise. Derek ruffled his hair. Hey, check this out. He picked up Nicholas' soccer ball and placed it on the top of his own head. Nicholas' jaw dropped theatrically as Derek fully stood up while keeping it balanced.
Ow!
Wow! Nicholas cheered and jumped up and down, still holding onto Derek's leg. Derek bent his knees and then popped up fast enough to launch the ball into the air. He caught it on his head again. Ha! Nicholas let go of his brother to clap. Derek grinned at Nicholas, but his gaze flickered to you for a second. The show over, Derek inclined his head and let the soccer ball roll into his hand, and he held it out to Nicholas. Make sure you eat lunch, okay? Then you can get back to practicing. Okay. Nicholas spoke into the soccer ball he had cuddled to his face. He'd been starstruck enough that he couldn't disagree with anything his biggest brother said. Derek waved at you and George before heading off to where he left his soccer ball, carrying only the water bottle with him. George promptly took his seat in the grass by the lunch bags. Nicholas put the soccer ball on his head, immediately rolled off. He just tried again. You reached over to the lunches. Each bag had clearly written names, black marker ink. George collected his bag. You had yours, and you attempted to give the last one to its proper owner. But Nicholas showed zero interest in the bag. You imagined he would have been more interested in Derek's lunch bag, even though they probably had the same meals. George scoffed, knowing his brother was going to be difficult again. He took a sandwich from his bag. From looks alone, you guessed it, a sliced deli turkey, a pale colored cheese, and some veggies. With Nicholas clearly busy, you took his sandwich out for him. The sandwich was ham and some sort of orangey cheese, cheddar most certainly. You offered the food directly to Nicholas, and he still didn't bite. He wanted to play. How about I help you eat while you practice? Nicholas, if you want to play, then you have to eat. If you eat, I'll hold the ball on your head for you. Deal? You panicked, so you sent an SOS glance at George. Let's try this. Nicholas carefully contemplated your suggestion. You held your breath, anticipating an oncoming battle, but then his seriousness melted into a bright grin. All right. He securely held the ball with both hands, top of his head, and then, in one fell swoop, Nicholas leaned over to tear a chunk of sandwich right out of your hand. Glancing over to George, you saw that he was quietly enjoying his lunch. You relaxed now that the situation was back under control. You lifted the sandwich up for Nicholas to strike again. He gladly took another big chomp of it, and you realized far too late that his focus was on the ball was waning. It tumbled away as he swallowed and leaned in for another bite. Unfazed, Nicholas continued eating, so with your free hand you took a bite of your own sandwich before the opportunity vanished. It was definitely an interesting way to enjoy your meal break. Finishing the last corner of your square-shaped meal, you wondered if Miss Suarez had talked to one of your moms beforehand about lunch. The sandwich was made how you would have made it had it at home. She was either prepared or very lucky, but considering what her oldest son was like, you were guessing luck had nothing to do with it. Along with the sandwich, there was also bags of carrot, celery, and a few cookies between the three of you. It wasn't long before all the snacks were gone. With nothing left to nibble on, Nicholas yawned and curled up in the grass, cuddling the soccer ball against his chest. George stood up, watching his little brother fall asleep. Once he was certain that Nicholas was down for the count, he started cleaning up the trash. You admired the maturity he showed for his age. It wasn't just Derek who had that streak after all. You helped gather the trash while musing about the Suarez brothers. Derek was the oldest and who his parents relied on, while Nicholas was the baby of the family, and for a little kid, he was a force to be reckoned with. George was the one stuck in the middle. Seriously, thank you for helping me. Thanks for being such a good kid to babysit. Hey, I saw your football throw earlier. You were really good. I like getting the chance to spend time together. You gave him an encouraging smile. Let's compliment his football. George spun around on his heel. He seemed stunned, like he wasn't sure if he imagined your compliment or not. In a couple of years, you could totally get on a junior football team. He nodded, and a blush grew on his face until it reached his ears. Okay. He hurriedly went back to what he was doing before. George was embarrassed, but you also noticed there was a bounce in his step that wasn't there before. The park suddenly felt empty with Nicholas asleep. He took up a lot of space despite his tiny size. Chuckling to yourself, you found a comfortable spot in the grass and scanned the area for Derek. You eventually caught sight of him running in the distance. Even from here, you could tell that Derek was persistent about his practice. He went back and forth, repeating the same set of moves, reassessing and refining his form every time. Though it wasn't long before he paused to wipe his brow with black wristband, Derek happened to glance your way at that moment and realized that he had an audience of one. He gave a huge wave with both hands that required he crossed both his arms over his head, and before you knew it, Derek's strides were bringing him back over to you and his brothers. Phew, that's it. I'm gonna be done with practice. I'm back. Welcome back. So you're ready to go pro now? I'm not that good. Yet. Derek shook his head incredulously. The confidence in your voice had his cheeks flushing just as much as the exercise. Thank you for watching, George and Nicholas. I didn't mean for it to be so long. Hey, I finally got to be the big sibling. I think I feel like an old, tired parent now. It's okay, I'm happy I could help you. You owe me one, you nodded promptly. I get to be the big sibling. It was cool. The nonchalant way you put it, like it was a role to easily step in and out of, had Derek laughing hard. As he collected himself, he rubbed the back of his neck. I'm I'm glad I could lend you that for a while. Next, he shifted his attention over to his brothers. George gave a little wave. He'd been waiting patiently for his big brother to wrap up his conversation with you. We're going back. George simply got up, not needing any more guidance, while Derek kneeled in the grass, nudging Nicholas out of dreamland. A single eye cracked open. It was the first at first, and then they both popped open wide when he realized who was with him. Derek! Nicholas sprang off the ground, wrapping his arms around his big brother like a vice grip and nuzzled into his chest. Derek gave Nicholas's head a single
Let's
pat.
go.
Practice was good today. Let's go home.
Let's go home.
Let's go home. Nicholas' hushed voice echoed his brother's, put a warm smile on your face. Surveying the area, you made sure that nothing would be accidentally left behind. Then you breathed a sigh of relief. You made it through your first time solo babysitting. Although Derek was technically still nearby the whole time, so it wasn't completely solo, but you weren't bothered by that. Derek trusted you with his siblings, and they were both still in one piece. With your leadership, no one got lost, injured, swallowed something they shouldn't have, or even declared that they hated you for eternity. So in your book, you'd say it went fairly well. 15-minute walk back from the park passed by pleasantly. The late afternoon sun fell behind you, and your shadow soon stretched across the sidewalk. You wiggled your fingers and then exaggerated your hand movements in order to watch the shadows change. Meanwhile, next to you, Derek was finally eating his lunch. Although he had to eat his sandwich with the hand Nicholas wasn't clasping tightly onto, George entertained himself with the football he still carried. He periodically tossed it up into the air and caught it again. You could easily imagine how often the three of them had made this trip before with only the three of them, but you didn't feel out of place strolling alongside the group. It felt natural. Beaming, you found your gaze settling on Derek again. You knew without a doubt that the way you felt was because of him. He was good at making you feel welcome. In time, you made it safely back, and Derek dropped his bag to the floor with a quiet sigh of relief. Any hope he had to take things easy for a second immediately evaporated. Ugh! Liquid. That's what I need. I hope you enjoyed the video. It's kind of a long one on this one. I think I'm gonna have to break this into like 3 videos because this first one already over 30 minutes. The next one 40. Then I have an extra 15 minutes on one. So if I split the 40-minute one into two, it'll be a little bit more manageable. But this is actually a pretty good story. Hope you liked it and you'll come back to see the rest of this DLC. Hope you had a good day. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to see more. Have a good day. I'll see you next time. Bye.